doing variables and expressions. So how can you take words and then write them as an algebraic expression, or take an algebraic expression and then write it as words? So since this is the first video, make sure you have a notebook and you're taking notes for this. So these are your notes for the lesson. So watch this, but then also pause, write stuff down, all that kind of stuff. So make sure you're taking notes instead of just watching this without doing anything else. So for the warm-up, think of 3 values or quantities or things in your life that vary. Write them down, and then I'll go through some of my examples. Okay, so some that you could have come up with is the number of hours of sleep you get. That's going to change depending on the day, I assume, for most people. You could also think of how much food you have in the fridge, how many clean clothes you have, how many dirty clothes, your test scores, your grades, anything that changes. So we're going to go on and look at these. So some words that represent addition. Pause this and then think of some yourself. Okay, so some that you should know. Some is one that we use often. You could also say if you add something, if you're combining 2 things, or more than. So if I say like 6 more than 7, I'm doing 6 plus 7. Different ones that represent subtraction is difference. And then you also could say minus or take away, or less than. So if I say 6 less than 7, I'm taking away or I'm subtracting 7. Words that represent multiplication. The product of 2 numbers. So if I say the product of 6 and 7, I'm multiplying those 2 together. Times or multiply. Division. The math term is the quotient. So if I say the quotient of 6 and 7, I'm taking 6 divided by 7. Say groups of, you're like groups of 3, groups of 2. If you're putting 6 into groups of 2, you have 3 groups of 2. Or divided by. So these are all things you're going to want to know what these words mean, what they like point towards. We're going to do some examples. So writing algebraic expressions with addition and subtraction. For each of these phrases, we want to write out what it is algebraically. So if you have 6 more than a number, you want to figure out what does that mean? Is it adding, subtracting, multiplying, or dividing? More than was on our list for addition, so we're adding. And we're 6 more than R. So R is going to come first because what we're starting with. And then we're 6 more than that. A note here, if I say algebraic expression up here at the top, algebraic means you have variables in it. So like X and Y, or B or A. An expression just means there's no equal sign. So like R plus 6 is an expression because it doesn't equal anything. So there's no equals sign. Back to our examples. So this one, if we want a number J added on to 12. So it's added on. That makes it easy to say it's addition. And it's added on to 12. So 12 is going to come first, and then we're going to add on J. Next one, we have 19 less than a number W. So if you look at your list of words, less than is for subtraction. And it's less than W, so it's W minus 19. So here are 3 more. Pause the video and try these on your own. Okay, this one is more than, so it's plus. This one is less than, so subtract. And this one is less than, so subtract. So if we write these out, you want 32 more than a number n. So n is going to start, and then we're going to add 32 onto that. We want 6 less than the number g. We're starting with g and subtracting 6. And then 58 less a number p. So this is a little tricky here. If you look at the second one, we had less than a number. This one is saying less a number. So this is saying you start with 58 and then you subtract p. So be careful when you're doing the words, you're not doing too quickly that you're going to miss something. All right, so algebraic expressions with division and multiplication. Same idea, we just now are doing multiplying and dividing. So we have a number times, or h times 9. That's going to be multiplication. So there's lots of ways you could write this. You could say h times 9. You could say 9h. You could say h times 9 like that. Any of those are fine. I will probably end up writing 9h most of the time. The next one says the product of 4 and a number. So look back again. Product means multiplication. So it's saying 4 and something. So this is where you're going to break this up. So you want 4 and your number n. So 4n. Quotient means division. So 32, and then this is the second part, is k. So 32 divided by k, or you can write it as 32 over k. Either one is fine. I'll probably do this one most of the time. All right, so obviously you can't do this because we're not in class, but write this as an algebraic expression. So pause the video and then try this quick. So we're more than, so it's plus a number t, so t plus 12 is what you should get. All right, so here is slightly more complicated, same idea, but now we have two expressions in the same, or two things in the same phrase. So like addition and multiplication, or addition and subtraction. So if we look at this, we have 2 more than, so that's like a plus 2, 3 times a number. So 3 times some x. So if we write this out, you'll get 3x plus the 2. The next one says the difference of, and then there's an and, so there's the second chunk. So the difference of 9, so we're subtracting 9, of 4 times a number y. So multiplication there, and y. So the difference of 9 and a number means you're going to start with 9 and then subtract the 4y. Last one, we have a quotient of 10, so that's some sort of division, more than a number d, and here's where you're going to divide. So that's our like indicator that this part, it has to go on top, and then anything after the and is going to go below. So we have 10 more than the number d, so this is a plus here. So we have to have 10 plus d, and then we were dividing by 3. So your answer will be d plus 10, or 10 plus d over 3. So pause the video quick and try these two. All right, so we have the sum of 5 and whatever comes after it. So 5 plus this chunk, which is p divided by 4. So p divided by 4. We want the product of 10, so that's multiplication, and something here, 3 times m. So 3 times m. So this will end up being 10 times 3 times m, which you can then simplify to 30m by multiplying the 10 and the 3 together. So now we're going to go the other direction. So we want to explain this with words. So we have x minus 5. So if you think back to the beginning, we could use less than, we could use minus, we could use take away, you could use difference. There's lots of ways you could say this. Probably the easiest is we'll say 5 less than x. You could say x take away 5, or x minus 5, or the difference of x and 5, or 5 less than x. So lots of different ways to say it. So this next one, we're going to do it in chunks. So if we're adding 12, we're going to do 12 more than, and then we need the next chunk, so this 5x. So 12 more than 5 times x. Again, there's lots of ways you could say this. You could say 5 times x, add 12, or 5 times x summed with 12. Like, there's all sorts of different ways you can say it. It's not just one answer. But some more examples. Real world scenario. So consider here the money a band makes for putting on a show. So if nobody comes to the show, they just straight make $100. If people come, then they've got to like start paying to come. So if one person comes, they make $15. So it's like they added 15 to their profit. Well, what do you think if they had 2 people come? You would get 130 in profit, or add another 15. We can keep doing that. We'll get 145 and then 160. But now we want to figure out what happens for n. So if we had like 500 people, how could we figure out their profit? So if we think about this again, this was 100 plus 15, right? This next one we had 100 plus 15 twice, so 15 times 2. The next one we had 100 plus 15 times 3. 100 plus 15 times 4. So what's the pattern here? We obviously start with 100, so I'll write that. And then we're adding something to it. If you look at this carefully, you can see that if we have 1 here, we're multiplying by 115. If we have 2 here, we have 2 15s. 3 15s. 4 15s. So if I have n, I want to put that n right there in the formula. So it's going to be 15 times n as a general formula. Okay, we're going to skip this page, but that's the end of the notes. So at the end of your notes, think of some sort of summary from today. So everything we talked about, how could you summarize that in a sentence or more? So a quick summary I would have would be, we learned about how to identify keywords such as quotient, which is division, your product, which is multiplying, sum, which would be adding, and difference would be subtraction. So go on Schoology to figure out what your assignment is, but that's it for the 1.1 notes.